Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to my February wrap-up. I read 16 books in the month of February. To be honest, I feel like I've been in not like a reading slump, but just in a weird mood when it comes to reading, and I find myself like not picking up books as often and not reading as much as I usually do, and it's kind of strange. But that's okay, we're still here. So as usual with my wrap-ups, I'm going to tell you guys about the books that I read for reading vlogs in the month of February first, and then from there we will go from my lowest rated to the highest rated of everything else. So the reading vlog that I just uploaded was reading the New York Times Best Horror of 2024. I read 6 books in that video. It is very long, it's like movie length. So if you want my full thoughts on any of these books, go and watch that video. There is timestamps in the description so you can switch to a certain book. You don't have to watch the entire thing. But the first one for that video was Model Home by Rivers Solomon. This is like a haunted house story, but it's mainly dealing with family trauma and has some commentary on racism. And I thought it was interesting at some parts, but I just didn't find myself really loving it, and I didn't like the reveal that we get at the end and the direction that the story went. So I gave this one 2.5 stars. The next one is Blood Like Mine by Stuart Neville. It's like a horror thriller because we are following, we have 2 different point of views. We have a woman who is on the run from something with her 12-year-old daughter, and then we have a detective who is investigating this string of murders. There may be a serial killer on the loose, and those 2 storylines are interconnected. I gave this one 3 stars because it just didn't do anything that I didn't expect it to do. Like, I went into it, and once I got a feel for what the story was, I kind of knew where it was going and like what kind of story it was aiming to be, and it just didn't surprise me at all. There was a little bit of a surprise, but unfortunately I had a main component of this book kind of spoiled for me. So if you don't know anything about this one and you want to read it, I would say go in knowing nothing because it will be a much more enjoyable experience, but I give this one 3 stars. Then I read Woodworm by Layla Martinez in that video. This is a little novella, another sort of haunted house. This is a gothic novella. And this is about a home and the 2 women that are stuck in it and the trauma and the past history of this home. I thought it was so beautifully written. This is translated from Spanish, but the writing absolutely blew me away. I really love the atmosphere and the setting, and I gave this one 4 stars. Then in that reading vlog, I also read 3 short story collections, and it almost killed me. But the first one is You Like It Darker by Stephen King. This one had a pretty enjoyable mix of stories. When I did my like calculated average rating for this, I think it came out to 3.2. but that feels like way lower than what I feel for it in my mind. So if I were to go off of like vibes, I would probably give this a 4. There were a lot of stories that I really enjoyed in this one. I liked the longer stories, and that's about it for that. The next short story collection I read was She's Always Hungry by Eliza Clark, which I did not enjoy nearly as much. I give this one 2.5 stars overall. I think there were 2 or 3 stories that I actually liked out of this collection. The rest of them I just really did not care for. It didn't feel like there was a point to a lot of them, and they just weren't very unique or original ideas in my opinion. And the last one that I read for this reading vlog was Not a Speck of Light by Laird Barron, which once again, like I said, is a short story collection. I ended up not giving this one a rating overall because there were a few stories that I skipped, and I just didn't really feel anything towards most of the stories in here. I think the ones that I did rate, I gave either a 3 or a 3.5, except there was one story that really stood out to me, and you can watch the reading vlog if you want to find out about that one. So now for everything else that I read in February, we have 10 more books to talk about. Like I said, we're going from lowest rated to highest rated. I read, how many romance books did I read? I think I read like 6 romance books or something in February. And originally I wanted to do a special Valentine's Day video talking about these books as I was reading them, and then plans fell through and I never ended up filming that video, which I'm a little bit sad about, but I just had too many things going on and I was just too overly ambitious at the beginning of the month. So I will tell you guys about those romance books now. So my lowest rated book for this month was Under One Roof by Ali Hazelwood, which is one of her STEMinist novellas. I originally picked up Loathe to Love You, which is like the hardcover copy of all three of these novellas in one collection. Why can I not think of what I'm trying to say? So I was originally going to read all three of those novellas, and I got through the first one and decided I didn't want to read the other two because I really disliked this one. And I know, like, I think I've read, aside from those other STEMinist novellas and then her young adult one, I have read, and her new release, I've read everything else from Ali Hazelwood, and although they are enjoyable, I know I've talked about this recently where I go into her books, I know what to expect, I'm just along for the ride. And this one was no different. It followed the same exact storyline of like big man and little lady, and they hate each other at first because of a misunderstanding, a miscommunication, and then, oh my god, they're obsessed with each other and they're having sex everywhere. But because this was a novella and it was so short, it took out any other chance for us to actually connect to the characters and get their backstory and really care about them. It was just romance from the get-go, which obviously, like, I know if I'm picking up a romance, it's gonna have romance in it, but I want to get to know the characters. I want to know about other things that are happening in their lives, and I just didn't like this, and then how it was just very stereotypical the way that she writes, and I didn't feel like doing two other novellas that were gonna follow that same sort of plot line. Then I read Fool Me Once by Ashley Winstead, which you guys, if you are not new to my channel, you already know by now, I love Ashley Winstead. Her thrillers, she's a 5-star thriller author for me, so I decided to pick up her romance debut. She actually has 2 out, and then I think they're companion novels. So this is the first one. This is about a woman working on this green machine bill where they are trying to get all of the government like vehicles switched over to electric vehicles, and a man joins the team, and it happens to be her rival, and they are constantly butting heads. There's a lot of professional rivalry, a lot of workplace stuff in here, and I just didn't really care for it all that much. It didn't really feel like a romance to me because it was so focused on these two and their professional lives and what they were trying to do in terms of like interacting with all these people in the government, and I don't know how to explain it. There was just like a lot of other things going on, which, like I said, I like when there's other things going on in a romance, but this one was lacking in the romance, and it just didn't, like, I didn't feel the chemistry between the characters. I didn't really care for their relationship, and this one just didn't leave a lasting impression in my brain, and I gave it 3 stars. The next romance that I had was The Love of My Afterlife by Kirsty Greenwood, which I gave it 3 stars as well. I remember when I finished it, I wrote like a pretty long review about it on Goodreads, and I don't even remember what I said in there. Let me tell you what the book is about first. So we have this woman who dies, and she goes to the afterlife, and she is assigned a afterlife therapist basically, and her whole life she has been single and she's been perfectly happy with being single, but her afterlife therapist is very much a hopeless romantic and wants her to fall in love, and so she agrees to send her back to Earth, I think for like a week, and she has to find this one specific guy and get him to kiss her in order to get herself out of this situation and be able to live. So she thinks this guy is like her soulmate, and she is just on the hunt for him and really trying to do everything she can to find this man and kiss him and make him fall in love. But it was like very, very quirky, to the point where it was like over the top and borderline cringy at some points following this woman throughout her life. Like, it just seemed so ridiculous, some of the shenanigans that she was getting into. And then the romance, I feel like, was predictable as well. Like, it does kind of try to lead you astray and then be like, oh, but this was happening all along. But I saw right through that. I feel like it was pretty obvious where it was gonna go, and it just didn't, I don't know. it didn't stand out to me. The next 3-star book that I had in February was Wrecked by Alex Gonzalez. This is a ARC. This book publishes March 25th. So if it sounds interesting, go ahead and pick it up. This is a horror that touches on grief and talks about the dark web. So we have a main character who has kind of always been into watching like gore and snuff films and stuff online. But when he loses his high school sweetheart, love of his life in their early 20s, she dies, he kind of goes into a spiral and he is consuming a lot more of this content, and he eventually gets reached out. Somebody sends him a link to the dark web in which he finds a video of the accident that killed his girlfriend, and this sends him into even more of a spiral, and he gets deeper and deeper into the dark web and gore and snuff films, and it kind of leads him to a path that you would never really see coming. I think this had a lot of interesting components and a lot of discussion of grief and the way that it affects us. Speaking about the internet and internet safety, AI and the evolution of that, and the potentially bad and destructive and very, very harmful things that could come with AI being a common thing. It was scary at points because it is so real. Like, it is dealing with things on the dark web that very much do exist in the real life, and it was a little bit hard to read at times because it was just blurring that line between fiction and reality, where you know you're reading a book, but you're also horrified because you know in the back of your head that this is stuff that really does happen. I thought it was a really interesting concept. I just wasn't fully sold with the execution of it. This one took me a really, really long time to get through for some reason, which is very abnormal for me. I think this is like a 300 something page book, and it took me a long time. I actually put it down, I think, for like a week, which is once again very, very rare for me. So I wasn't fully invested in the story. I was interested in what was happening and where it was gonna go, but I wasn't like fully there. My last 3-star book was Blob, a love story by Maggie Sue, and this is about a woman. This is kind of like a literary fiction, not really coming of age, but I guess kind of coming of age, or like a woman finding her path in life. But this is about a woman who finds a sentient blob on the street one day, and she decides to take it home and eventually helps it form into a man who is fully functioning in the world. And she is wanting to create like the perfect partner for herself in a way, but things do not go to plan. This worked really, really well for a lot of people. I've seen so many great raving reviews for it, but to me it just didn't do anything special. Like, it was just kind of your standard fiction book about a woman navigating a weird point in her life, but then there was also a little bit of weirdness with the blob man, but I wanted it to be weirder. I wanted it to be darker. It definitely could have leaned into that side a whole lot more and gotten so crazy, and it just didn't go there. It stayed very light throughout, which is fine. It's just not exactly what I was seeking when I picked this one up. Back to talking about some more romance books. We are moving on to my 3.5-star category. The first one is a novel love story by Ashley Poston, which I wanted to love so much more than I did. It just didn't fully deliver for me. This is about a woman who accidentally, mysteriously ends up within the town of her favorite book series. So she is interacting with these fictional characters that she's read about her entire life. She's going to all of these places, like the diner, the candy shop, the library, the hotel, that are like the foundation for this book series that she loves. And she ends up falling in love with a man within this town, and it's an interesting dynamic because obviously she knows at some point she's got to return to the real world and to her life, but this man is a fictional character, so how are they going to navigate their feelings for each other. I really enjoyed the premise of this. I really loved the setting. It was just a very like cozy, feel-good story. It talked so much about books and like the publishing world and what it means, like what your favorite book means to you and how you can feel so connected to a setting and to characters within a fictional story. So it was definitely a book for book lovers, if that makes sense. But the romance was really lacking in my opinion. That was the biggest thing that I just couldn't get behind with this book, is I just didn't see the chemistry there. I just wasn't a really big fan of their relationship. Moving on, the next one I read was One Star Romance by Laura Hankin. This is about a woman who is trying to make it as an author. She publishes a romance book, and somebody she knows through like a friend of a friend gives that book 1 star, and they have always kind of had an interesting relationship. There's definitely some chemistry between the two of them, but the timing was never right for them to be together. And then after she finds out about this 1 star review, she is like, I hate this guy, like this guy's the worst ever, because why would he do that like to somebody that he knows? So this is kind of an untraditional romance. I think this definitely leans more like fiction. I want to say like women's fiction, but like what does women's fiction even mean? But you know, like that sort of genre, because you are essentially following these people throughout many years of their lives, and you are seeing their friends and their friends' relationships develop, but their relationship is kind of not stagnant. Like there's definitely things happening, but it's just right person, wrong timing for the span of several years, and you're following them go from maybe mildly interested in each other to hating each other to interested again but trying to deny their feelings and then falling in love. So it was definitely interesting. I liked the writing. It was a little bit of a deeper emotional romance, but overall it just wasn't like the perfect book for me personally. Then I had a 4 star with Nora Goes Off Script by Annabelle Monaghan. This is a romance that's kind of in the same vein, where it's definitely like leaning towards fiction / women's fiction. We have this woman with 2 children. Her husband divorced her. She's going through it. And she writes screenplays. She writes like the stereotypical Hallmark movie type of things, but one day she writes something a little bit different, and she really leans into her feelings of heartbreak and sadness and loneliness, and it gets picked up and gets a major movie deal. And then the actors come and they actually film it at her home, and she ends up getting involved in a romance with the lead actor in this movie. So the two are definitely butting heads at first. He seems kind of like a mess, but she's also kind of a mess, and the more that they get to know each other and they get to know what each other wants in life, their romance starts to develop. And there was definitely a point in this book where I was like, I'm not so sure if I really want them to be together because of something that had happened, and then it came around in the end. It got explained, and I was like, okay, I'm fine with this. I thought it was really cute. I think Annabelle Monaghan is a fantastic writer, and I would recommend this one. Now we're ready for the big ones. 4.5 stars. Miss Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This is a buddy read that I did with Brooklyn from Brooklyn's Library, and we actually did a live stream talking about all of our feelings towards this book. So if you really want to know all the juicy details and know what she thought about it, you can go and watch that live. There will be spoilers after a certain point. This book is one of those books that, like, everybody's seen this around the internet, and I feel like I've heard so many people talk about it that I was like, I know what this book is. Like, I know what to expect. And when I went into it, it like simultaneously it felt like a familiar book, but it also blew me away and was so much better than I was expecting, and I was expecting it to be great. This, if you don't know, this is the first books in the Magnolia Parks universe series. This is about Magnolia, who is a London socialite, and her toxic on-again, off-again relationship with BJ Ballantyne, who is I still don't even know how to explain BJ. Britain's most photographed bad boy. He's like an influencer. I don't know. He's just popular. So these two have a very deep relationship because they grew up together. They were each other's first loves, kind of first everything, and they are just very, very deeply connected and tied to one another, and they dated for a few years before they broke up, and now they are both still very much in love with the other person but are kind of self-sabotaging. BJ sleeps around to cover up his feelings, and Magnolia gets in relationships with other guys to cover up her feelings, and they're just very toxic for one another, but they still really, really love each other underneath it all, and it's complicated. So that was 4.5 stars for me. Love the writing, love the characters, love the drama. Like, it had me on the edge of my seat. So of course I had to pick up book 2, which is Daisy Hates, which is a different character. This is a different perspective in the Magnolia Parks universe. These two take place during the same timeline. It's just this is Magnolia and BJ, and this is Daisy and Christian. Once again, this was a buddy read with Brooklyn from Brooklyn's Library, who will be linked down below. Go and subscribe to her. She's probably gonna see the notification and be like, why did Angel tag me in her wrap up? But she does a lot of fun things on her channel, so I would highly recommend go and check her out. But I am not gonna say too much about my thoughts for this one. I will tell you I gave it 5 stars. But I'm not going to give away too much because once again, we are doing a live stream for it where I will tell you everything. Like, look at all the tabs, look at all the highlights. Like, I will tell you everything. I'm also doing, as I go through the series, I am vlogging it. This will be a full spoilers vlog that I will upload sometime this year whenever I finish the series. I don't know when there's still one more book that needs to be published. I don't know when that one will come out. But when I finish the ones that are currently out, then I will upload my full spoilers vlog. So look forward to that. 4.5 stars, 5 stars. Make of that what you will. And that brings us to the very end of the video. This is probably one of the fastest wrap-ups that I've ever done. I think it's because I had a lot of romance and a lot of 3 stars that I was like, I really don't... Like, 3 stars, I think I've mentioned this before, they're just so hard to sit down and talk about because it's like, you're just in the middle. Like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it, I really have nothing strongly to say about this one. So I guess with all of that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you next time. I don't know why I just did the peace sign there. I never do that in my videos, but we did today.